Those are the things that make us unhappy. And the antidotes to those things are to cultivate generosity, loving kindness, empathy, wisdom, and the like. And that's where meditation goes. There are certain practices that actually change your brain and create neural pathways that allow you to express kindness more easily, more gently, more naturally. And as you go through that process, as you meditate on loving kindness, there comes a time when your heart opens and you can feel it. It is a physical sensation that your heart opens and it never closes up again. And when that happens, all you want to do is the main theme of your life is to ease suffering.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today, I'm here with Bob Martin, a guest with a story that is as extraordinary and entertaining as fun, from a high-powered mob lawyer during Miami's wild cocaine cowboy days to a certified meditation teacher with an MSW to go with his JD. He has helped hundreds redesign their life thinking for the life they dream of. Bob's journey is anything but ordinary. Now he is a 2-time published author and a professor of wellness at Elon University. Bob blends Taoist wisdom, brain science, psychology, and humor to tackle everything from breaking free of limiting beliefs to finding clarity and resilience in life's chaos. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bob.
Oh, thank you for creating the platform that allows me to join you.
Absolutely. A little bit about your background. You were previously a lawyer and you transitioned over to being a meditation teacher. Can you go back and tell us your journey from going from a lawyer to meditation and to where you are now?
I'm still a lawyer. I still keep my license. I just can't bear to let my license expire. I don't know. I spent so many years, 40 years in trials. I grew up in amusement parks. My dad had found the way to acquire the American dream was through popcorn and cotton candy. I grew up in that sphere of amusement parks and carnivals, and never expected that I would wind up being a lawyer. But certain things happen in life. They push you in a certain direction. I got pushed to get there. I had a great law school, and they allowed us to intern in public service in our third year. And so I interned at the Miami-Dade District Attorney's Office, which was headed up by Janet Reno. Some of your older audience may know that name. Rose up through the office. I did very well there. And then eventually we had a big case against the cartels and the mob. Of course, in Miami, during those days of the Cocaine Cowboy days and the Muriel boat lift, it's kind of the days of Scarface and Miami Vice and that kind of vibe. Everybody, the Colombians and the Italians and the Haitians and the Dominions and the Cubans, they were all talking to each other. We hit them for a lot of money in a racketeering charge. And after that, I went out from the office. I left the office and I hung my shingle out. And so a couple of weeks later, this guy, Johnny, from the Italian side of the whole thing, came to visit me. And it scared the bejesus out of me when he walked into my office because I knew who he was. But he sat down very calmly and kind of looked at me. And we looked at each other for a while. And then he goes, you hit us for a lot of money. And I go, yes, sir. And he goes, and we got good lawyers and you beat them. So we want to send you some clients.
Wow.
So that started several years of being around all those guys. I mean, once you know one, then you start to meet them all and you get to know the insides of that business. You never want to know too much because you always need to stay on the right side of the line, We had a good agreement, nothing unethical, nothing illegal. And I explained to Johnny that he wanted a lawyer whose word was gold in the courtroom and had a good reputation as a straight shooter. And that would benefit him. Because if I didn't have a good reputation, I couldn't get the judges to go with, requests that I would make. And he said, yeah, it's fine. And so that worked out professionally. It didn't work out so well personally. I was hanging out with those guys and those were the days of the chrome and glass discotheques. And, they called them the Cocaine Cowboys. There's a lot of cocaine around there. My behaviors were kind of excessive, and things weren't going so well at home. And so I worked harder and harder and stayed out longer and longer, and things were kind of falling apart. So I was seeing a therapist. And it was through the therapist that I met my mentor.
Wow. How did you feel that it was the right decision to transition your career from working as a high paid lawyer, a big legal position, to going into meditation and yoga? What were some emotions that you felt, and what were some challenges going from that transition?
The main motivator was that I was I was scared. And I felt like I was bottoming out, and I was scared that I was going to kind of lose everything, even though I had everything. Um, and I was reaching out for help. George, my therapist, introduced me to my mentor, who was a 72nd generation Taoist master from the Shaolin Temple named Hua Hunqing Ni. I met this man. In my family, we didn't have any kind of religious upbringing because all of my ancestors on both sides had been wiped out by either the Bolsheviks or the Nazis. My folks, just weren't religious. I'd never been introduced to any kind of system of laying out a plan of how to live life. And Master Ni was, I say, a Taoist master. 72nd generations of handing that wisdom down from father to son. That's about 1,400 years. I met this guy, and the moment I met him, I knew that he had what I wanted. He knew what I needed to know. And so I just wanted to, sit at his feet, metaphorically sit at his feet and just suck in all his knowledge. Teach me, teach me, teach me. Studied with him for 6 years. Not in the Shaolin Temple, in Miami, because he came to Miami because George, my therapist, was one of his primary students, was his actually number one student. I learned a lot about Taoism and a lot about how to live life and what it really means to go with the flow. Master Ni was a good and kind of strict, and he made us work in practices, doing Tai Chi, practicing the I Ching and other Taoist practices. And it was transformational. It was what I learned from him taught me how to live life.
It's really interesting how you explained your journey from working in high stake legal positions as a lawyer and then going into meditation because of your mentor. It's amazing because I can relate in a similar way, not to the same extreme as you, but I remember when I was in high school, I was growing up as a dancer. There was this dance studio that opened up by my house, and I was one of the first students that went to that dance studio, and I danced there from, I don't know, third or fourth grade all the way until I graduated high school. So I was always there. But then there was a time where I took 2 years off, and that 2 years was when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, and I was actually hanging around the wrong kids. I was doing things I shouldn't be doing, like drinking and smoking, and I was seeing that it was starting to take a toll on me, and it was already starting to lead me in the wrong direction because of the kids that I was choosing to hang around with. And I remember after those 2 years, I went back to my mom and I was like, hey, can I go back to dance class? Because I saw how it was starting to spiral backwards. I always said, you won't be given anything you can't handle, but it's also good that we were in those kinds of situations for a short period of time to show us what we don't want.
So true, so true.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey of writing and how that came about and what inspired you to start writing?
Lawyers write, okay? Of course, we write legal stuff. It's legal in a way because we have all these citations and we refer to prior cases and we argue the law and stuff like that. But underneath every case is somebody who's been hurt in some way, somebody that's living on the edge of existence. And you're standing for that person when you take their case. You stand for them. You advocate for them. Their problems become your problems, at least until the jury comes in and says whatever it says, then, you cry or you celebrate for a night and then you go on to the next case. So it's kind of it's kind of a weird profession in that way. But you do right, and especially in criminal cases, either as a prosecutor where you have come to know a victim very, very intimately, or a defense attorney, whose freedom or life in a death case, is in your hands to defend and advocate for. So there is a lot of drama in law. If you're a contract lawyer or a financial lawyer or something, that's not. But if you're a trial lawyer, there's a lot of drama. I knew that I could write. Then with Master Nee, it was more about learning how to live life. Then a funny thing happened. I'm studying with Master Nee for about 5 years. I can feel my insides are changing. My heart is changing slowly, feeling more and more that I'm in the wrong place. And just when that happens, it's kind of synchronous. My mob client, Johnny's son, gets arrested. And Johnny comes to me and says, I understand our deal. I understand it, but you got to win this case. I don't care what you have to do. You have to make up evidence. If you have to coach witnesses, you got to do what you got to do. You got to win this case. And I was stuck in a place where I wasn't going to do that, neither in my heart nor in my ethical as a lawyer. I happened to visit North Carolina in the springtime, and the azaleas were out and the dogwoods were blooming. And it was just so pretty. I decided that we would move there, and I went back. I told Johnny, Johnny, I'm gonna move to North Carolina, and he said, sometimes a man has to move on, so we can part friends this way. And so we shook hands, and I never heard from them again, gratefully. When I got to North Carolina, it was all of a sudden I had moved from like doing, horrible homicide cases. I became a prosecutor again, to prosecuting people for killing deers with no antlers. So it was a big culture shock, Um, can I tell you a little funny thing? I remember the very first time I came up in a U-Haul, left my wife and kids in Miami till I got settled. Came up in the U-Haul, one of those big old TVs with the cathode ray tubes, the old big ones with that. And I finally set it up and I turned it on, and it started out with a little white dot in the middle, and the dot grew, and all of a sudden the picture came up, and there was this big old cowboy guy with a 10-gallon white hat, and he looked right at me and he pointed his finger and he said, "You need to get yourself a truck." I go, okay, where am I?
Complete culture shock.
Culture shock. But there aren't many Taoists here, but there are a lot Buddhists. And so they're like sisters. Taoism and Buddhism are like sister ideas. I started going to Buddhist temples, and those are the ones that are much more into meditation. Taoism is more into contemplation, thinking about things, philosophy. Buddhism is much more about meditating. So that's where I started meditating and learning to meditate. I am going to answer your question about writing.
Yeah, take your time.
So, one of the things that you do once you spend a couple of weeks and you acquire the basic skill of meditating, forming an intention to put your attention on the candle, and your mind wanders. You notice that it wanders, you come back, you begin again, it goes off somewhere else, you come back, you begin again, it goes off somewhere else, you come back, you begin again. Once you have that down, then the idea of meditation is to cultivate the things that are the antidotes to the stuff that makes us unhappy. And what makes us unhappy? It's greed. I want things that I don't have, or just wanting, or being attached to things and not wanting to lose them, or not having it, or being jealous of your friend's nicer car. There's things you don't like and annoy you, or people that you hate, that you want to get them away from you. You don't want to grow old. I want to stay young. And then there's ignorance. I don't understand what's going on. So you either want to go to sleep or destroy it. So those are the things that make us unhappy. And the antidotes to those things are to cultivate generosity, loving kindness, empathy, wisdom, and the like. And that's where meditation goes. There are certain practices that actually change your brain and create neural pathways that allow you to express kindness more easily, more gently, more naturally. And as you go through that process, as you meditate on loving kindness, there comes a time when your heart opens and you can feel it. It is a physical sensation that your heart opens and it never closes up again. And when that happens, all you want to do is, or the main theme of your life is to ease suffering. I could write, and now I had something I wanted to write about. I wanted to write, you know, share the happiness and things about, little the tips and the tricks and things that I had learned that made me the happy person that I was. I wanted to share those with other people. And the best way I could do that was through writing.
That's such a beautiful way to wrap it up. I think a lot of times, like, we go through these challenging times in our life, whether we like it or not in that moment. It's so important to find some kinds of lessons because I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy things when you were in Miami working as an attorney over there. You were just saying greed doesn't make people happy. And I'm sure you witnessed a lot of greed. I'm sure you witnessed a lot of selfish mindset and selfish habits. And those were really there to teach you that that's not what life is about. Life is about giving to others and being kind to others and giving what people need, not just trying to take. And that also now reflects back into your writing. And I think that's a really beautiful way to tie it together. What are some challenges that you came across when you were writing your first book?
Perseverance. You walk away for a little while, and it's kind of like you decide you want to work out, and you're going to go to the gym, right? So you go to the gym for like 2 weeks straight every day, and then something comes up. Yeah, I don't feel like I want to go today, and then it turns into another day and another day and another day. You say, I really got to get back to the gym, and then finally you turn around, and you go back to the gym. So writing a book is kind of like that. You'll write and write and write, and then all of a sudden, you notice that 3 weeks has gone by and you haven't done anything. And then to get yourself to go back and begin again can be challenging. The funny thing is that's exactly what meditation teaches you, because a lot of people think that meditation's about quieting the mind, and it's not. It's about coming back and beginning again after your mind has wandered, after it's gone crazy, coming back and beginning again and begin again and begin again. And every time you do that, you build kind of a mental toughness. So that was very helpful in getting past all that. And there's a lot of my life that went into that book. The most challenging part about it is once it was printed, to try to find a publisher and then to publicize it. And you had these dreams that you're going to write a New York Times bestseller, and you're going to see your name up in a marquee, and you're going to be on the red carpet, and all this wonderful things, and you just have all these ideas. And then people say, well, in order to get there, we'll need to do some copy editing, and that's going to cost you $2,400. And then we're going to need to do this, and that's going to cost you this, and that's going to cost you that. And they just tear you apart. And they did. That was quite challenging, that whole process. You go into a different field that you don't know much about. And, you just got a T-shirt on that says victim, victimize me, available. And so you learn lessons from that too.
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to write their first book or is struggling to stay consistent with writing their first book? What advice would you give to them?
You just got to do it. You just got to put yourself back in the seat and sit there and do it. I mean, as far as struggling to get it there, here you go. You have to be dedicated, and the dedication needs to come out of a sense of passion. Now, if you've written 10 books in a series and you got the formula down, you can whack out another one and whack out another one. But your first book, you got to be passionate about. You got to write about something that you want to share, something that you want to say. and that passion has to override, the resistance.
That's true. It's a beautiful way to say it. I always remind myself and I remind others when they ask me is do things with a selfless mindset. We all have a story that is there to help us grow, but not only ourselves, once we overcome the challenges in our story, it's actually there to help other people along the road. One of the most beautiful things about being able to share your words, because words are so powerful, like your words will create actions, but at the same time, your words will help someone you don't even know who is waiting to hear your writing. It's just always going back to writing from a selfless perspective.
No, you said it much better. That you said that is absolutely accurate. I teach on campus, and one of the courses that I teach is a business law course. But I give out writing assignments, and when I get these kids writing, I read them, I could see that they're so stuck on saying what they want to say the way they want to say it, and they're not writing for me, the reader. There's no compassion in it. It's all selfish. I just want to say what I want to say the way I want to say it. And even if I give them instructions, not everybody, but some, and then even if I give them instructions, do it this way, they still want to do it their own way. And it's funny. I was having a conversation with my wife. She was giving me a bunch of honeydews, honeydew this, honeydew that. And finally, I just had to stop her and say, hey, wait. Let me just ask you something. What's more important to you? Is it more important to you that I understand what you are asking me to do, or that you get to say what you want to say the way you want to say it? And she said, well, of course it's more important that you understand what I'm trying to tell you to do. I said, well, then you're going to have to change the way you say it because I'm not getting it. And it's kind of like that. I call it compassionate writing not because I'm writing about compassionate things, but I'm writing for the reader.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how is the reader going to take this? Do I need to put in a little bit more explanation? Can I trust the reader to get what I'm saying on their own, which is way better? If you can show something and the reader gets it without your having to go blah, 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 explaining it like they're school children, it's much better for them, but it's challenging for the author.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like how you said that. It's make it for the reader because when you make it for the reader, it makes them feel like they're part of the story. And then it makes them feel like they're a part of the conversation. And I think that's so important these days. It's kind of like a lost art, especially when we're just having a simple conversation with somebody. It's me, but not enough. What about you? Not enough. How are you doing? How are you actually feeling? What do you need? And I think if we can translate that by taking the eyes off of us and making it about another person and translating it into writing, the writing will be more successful because you're thinking about the reader. What does the reader need? How do they feel? Do they feel like they're part of this conversation or do they not? And I think that's a really beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. You're right. We all have a tendency to want to talk about me. Master Neat said to me, whenever you meet somebody new, always ask them to tell you their story and be interested in it. And the first few times I remember I would say that, I would feel weird about it. They would say that. And I'm still thinking about, me too. And I wanted to say and butt in and tell them how that maps onto me. But, just by staying with their story and asking them like questions and things like that, by the time they finish their story, you kind of lose the need to have to tell yours. It's okay, that's complete. Maybe sometimes I'll tell mine, but this wasn't the time for that. Makes a difference. You get to know people and you get to understand them better.
Absolutely. When it comes to self-publishing and traditional publishing, what are the differences? What have you liked about both versus what have you not liked?
Self-publishing is writing everybody said I remember I was talking to somebody in this self-publishing field, and he says, well, no matter what happens with your book, no matter what, you should be proud of yourself because there's only a very few people who eventually can say, I wrote a book. So be proud of yourself for that. That's almost the least difficult thing about getting a book out there. Getting it published and all the incredible expenses that are involved, and then the publicity of it. It's intimidating and it's hard, and there's not a lot of success. If you look on Facebook, you see all these ads, write your book and make $1 million, and we can show you how to write a book in 10 days and, make $1 million. It's all a scam. So the difference with traditional publishing is I get a call. We're interested in your book. That's my second book, was traditionally published. So send me the manuscript. Yep, we'll publish this. We'll line edit it for you, and we'll format it for you, and we'll publish it. And we'll get it on Amazon, and we'll get it distributed all over the world, and we'll get it on Barnes & Noble, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And if you need some posters or you need some publicity materials, our sales force will be talking to the small, book stores, saying about getting them to pick up your book and put a couple on the shelf. We'll advertise it online. So you have the force of an entire team that's behind you and practicing podcast forever. For example, when it comes out, I'll just take the link to it and I'll send it to my publisher, and they'll post it all around. So it's good for you and it's good for me.
When I wrote my first book, I went down the self-publishing route because I was coming across those same fork in the roads as you were with the traditional publishing companies. They're asking for a lot of money here. Then they say, oh, I could put it on Amazon. I can get it on all of these websites. But quite honestly, you can do that if you self-publish yourself. And in my opinion, I would prefer self-publishing in the beginning to start with, and to start getting your book and getting your contents out there. And then later down the road, if you want to go down the traditional publishing route, there's totally an open door.
I never paid anything to the traditional publisher. They paid me.
Okay.
They gave me an advance.
Okay, that's really nice.
Yeah. And then I gave them the manuscript. They gave me an advance. The checks come in twice a year.
Amazing. How many books have you written now?
2. And what's really great is the first one that I self-published, now that they took my second book and published it, they asked me about the first book, and I told them about it, and they said, well, would you like us to publish that one too? And so we're in the process of getting that reformatted with a new cover, and so they're going to put it out as well, probably be released in April or May.
That's incredible. Bob, before we go ahead and wrap things up, is there any piece of advice that you'd love to share with the audience, whether it's switching careers or writing and publishing their first book?
Yes, there is. The world throws a lot of negativity at us. It doesn't throw a lot of beauty at us. And so our brain becomes unbalanced. And I say that we have a responsibility to beauty. We have to curate our environment and make sure that in our workspace we have pretty things, beautiful things, that we take the time to look at the beauty of nature, walk in a park, go see a sunset. Take the time to do these things, because when you do that, you literally are balancing your brain in terms of the electric activity in different parts of your brain. We have a responsibility to surround ourselves with beauty. And if you have enough beauty in your life, maybe your heart will open, and that will be the path to happiness.
That's incredible. Can you please tell us, where can people support you and where can they find your books?
All at awiseandhappylife.com. One word, awiseandhappylife.com.
Amazing. I will have that link down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch and support you. Thank you for your time, Bob, and thank you for being here. Thanks to